Fight fans? It is Maddie Levine back in action for the 1-2 punch. And I just gotta say thank you so much for all the love that you've been giving this channel. We are only about 2 months in and we are killing the game because I'm constantly bringing you some of your favorite fighters and people in the fight game. And today we're gonna keep those hits coming. We have a really fun guest today, and he was one of the top lightweights in the world during his prime. And I would argue that he's still in his prime, just on the coaching side of things. What do you say, Dean Thomas? Would you agree with that?
No way. I don't know. I guess, am I being too modest? No, I don't know. Listen, I just love being involved because there's a lot other worse things that I could do in life, and to still be involved in this game of punching people in the face, I'm just blessed. So listen, I'll take it. Any way you want to give it to me, I'll take it.
I feel blessed just talking to you right now. This is wild. Like, as a fan of the game and just sharing a screen with you right now, this is a real treat. And I know a lot of the fight fans are going to love hearing this conversation, but I'd love to just dive in, talk a little bit about your story. A lot of people know you as the funny guy on Dana White's Looking for a Fight now. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Which is not very accurate, because Matt Serra is the funniest guy in the world. That is without question. Matt Serra. So Matt Serra is the real funny guy. In fact, I'm kind of the straight guy on the show. Matt Serra is the funny guy. But that show is a blast. We have a good time when we film that. It's, nonstop laughs between, me, Matt, and Dana, and then the crew. It's just nonstop fun, and it never ends. And we just filmed an episode last week. We were in Kansas City, and we went over to Laura Sanko's house, and she has a farm. So you guys, I promise you're going to enjoy that. And yeah, we're going to keep making great content. That's what we're going to do.
That's what we're here for. What's it like being friends with Matt Serra? Because he seems to be kind of a wild guy.
Well, you have to have patience.
Yeah.
I have a son, so being friends with Matt Serra is like when my son was like 2 or 3. It's a very similar dealing with them, so like dealing with Matt Serra is like dealing with a 2-year-old, but one that has you got to be careful because he's got a short temper. So
right.
Well, it's not that he has a short temper. It's just he's a man of value and morality, and his morals, he puts him in front of everything. So if you ever cross him, he's going to let you know. So I'll make sure.
Him on your good side.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I always keep Matt on my good side. But that's my buddy. He's like my best friend. So, but he's a child. He's a man child. He's so immature.
Well, I'm sure that you probably matured over the years. But when you got started, it's shocking to think that you started in the 90s and you're still, very much in this game. I'd love to hear how you got started in the 90s, back when, it wasn't really all that mainstream yet.
No, it wasn't mainstream at all. It wasn't even, we called it NHB, No Holds Barred, or Vale Tudo. That's what we called it. And
oh boy.
Yeah. And Vale Tudo meaning anything goes is a Portuguese term. So it was a lot different back then because there was an opportunity. It wasn't looked at as a sport. It was still kind of just an event. And we didn't have opportunities to fight. So anybody who trained in it was just doing it because we loved it. We were passionate about it. And the number one reason why we trained back then was we didn't want to get beat up in the street, and to me, that's still why I'm involved. Plus, I don't want to work a real job, but I didn't want to get beat up in the street. So that's what it was all about. And so even today when I'm coaching, defending yourself is my number one priority, is to come home as safely as you possibly can. So getting started back then was, we saw UFC, early UFCs, UFC 1, UFC 2, UFC 3, and I was like, man, I got to learn how to do that. How is this little Brazilian guy choking people out? I got to learn how to do that because I'm small. I weigh 120 pounds. I got to learn how to do that. And then that's how it started. The rest is history. I just, there weren't schools like it is now, so we had to travel a lot. I had to do, seminars wherever I could find them and just learn it from videotapes. And that's how we learned. That's how we did it.
And I mean, learning that way is certainly not easy. So for you to have to take basically just from the ground up, using your instincts, now becoming this prestigious coach, how did that background help you bring kind of a new flair to maybe your coaching style?
Well, I think it gave me an advantage, actually. When I think about the advantages that I have as a coach compared to some other people, because I didn't come from a wrestling background or a boxing background. So even coaches today that have those backgrounds, they filter information through that discipline. So if you're a wrestling coach, you're automatically thinking, how can I get out of this position using wrestling? Or how can I take advantage of this position using wrestling? It's just a natural filter because that's what you started with. For me, I didn't have that. It was, what can I do that's going to work? And it also allowed me to create a lot of my own stuff. So, even at that time period, they didn't have like real coaches and instructors. We had to make a lot of that stuff up. So like we were creating the game as we see it today. Guys like Jeremy Horn and Pat Miletich, like these guys were creating the game. But also what that did, the advantages that gave me was that even now I'm still creating positions. I'm still looking at the game with the same curiosity going, how can we make this easier? How can we take advantage of this position better? Because again, I don't have a filter and I never had a filter. So like, I'm not looking at it from any perspective. I'm looking at it from what can I do to make this work for you? So I think those are the advantages that I have as a coach is that I don't have a background.
It's like a clean slate, right?
Right.
So now that you are a full-time coach, it sounds like you've been coaching since the very beginning. And now that you're a full-time coach, no longer fighting, are there things that you tell your fighters now that you wish that you would have known when you were fighting?
Everything that I tell them, I wish I knew when I was fighting. I was talking to one of my fighters yesterday, David Evans, and he says, it's amazing how desensitized you are to the fight game because Jillian Robertson just got booked to fight JJ Aldrich. And when they come in with these offers, they go, hey, do you want this fight? I go, yeah, take the fight. While most people are like, oh, how much time, how much money, how much this, that, and I'm like, yeah, just take the fight. Right. Because I'm desensitized to it because I understand that at the end of the day, taking advantage of opportunity is always better than regret and not taking advantage of opportunity. That's the one thing I know about this game is that you should say yes to almost everything. And then if you don't want to do it later, then turn it down. But you want to take advantage of all the opportunities that you can, because when you pass up opportunities, that might have been the opportunity that made you famous. That's the way it is. Like if you turn down an opportunity, that might have been the one that made you famous. So you can't turn down opportunities. So when we get fights, I'm like, hey, take the fight. If you lose, so what? Fight again.
Speaking of opportunities.
Yes, you just need to get opportunities.
I jumped on your mistake of messaging me on Instagram, and it was the best mistake ever. And we need to tell the people how this happened. So I wake up to a direct message from Dean Thomas, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, it's spam. It's gotta be. Like, I don't know Dean Thomas personally. And I look at it. It's a video of it was like two Karens fighting, right? Two Karens fighting. And I'm like, what is happening? And then what happens, Dean?
Oh, so basically, I work for ESPN West Palm in West Palm Beach. And in the office, there's a lot of white girls in the office. They're my favorite. They're my favorite people in the world. So like me, yes, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like me, like I feel like I should be a 25-year-old white girl sometimes because I'll be getting along with them like that. But so we always play around and I always call them Karen and stuff. But so you're right. There was it was this video with like these two Karens and they were fighting. So I was trying to send it to all the girls like in my little network at work.
Right.
One of them's name is Maddie and I don't follow her. And I saw you pop up, and it said, it was like Maddie on air or whatever it was. Yes. So I'm thinking,
That's her.
that's her because like she's on air. And
Right.
turns out that wasn't her and it was you. And you were like, hey, I do my own show. So boom, that's right. Here we are.
And that's talking about taking an opportunity. And I just grabbed it. And I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to him. So
He was like,
I'm in radio. So,
right.
That's where the on air comes. But I love, love, love martial arts. I'm an amateur kickboxer and I'm starting to, get involved with a lot more interviewing. So when Dean Thomas accidentally slid in the DMs, I was like, this is cool. This is cool.
And I felt so bad too because I was like, oh no. I said, man, that's not even her, but oh well.
It was hilarious. It's like that's the funny side of social media. Like that stuff happens, It happens to the best of us. It could have been way worse.
It could have been I've had that happen.
Oh no, Dean. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
No. I'm just kidding. No.
But no, back to a more serious note. I found this quote really interesting. You recently said something along the lines of, I never get the itch to fight anymore. I will never fight again. And I found that so interesting because I feel like one of the biggest problems that a lot of fighters have is stopping in their prime or stopping at the appropriate time. So where does that solid answer or that like concrete behavior come from?
Well, first off, I think that so in other sports, they don't get to decide whether they play or not. Like if you're in the NFL and you're not good enough to play, you get cut. Like, and that's it. And your career is over. In fighting, there's no one to really tell you it's over. It's up to you to make that decision. But the problem with that is that fighters are always living in the past. They're always living in what they used to be able to do. And they got people around them telling them, oh man, you're going to get it back. You can beat these guys. Remember how good you used to be. And that's the problem, is that they're always living in the past. They're living, it's almost like in high school. Like if you were the star quarterback in high school, now you're off in the real world. You're not the star no more. So you got to move on. And with fighters is that they have a hard time moving on because it's such deeply ingrained into their identity being a fighter. Like their whole person is being a fighter. So to move on is difficult for them. But that's something that they have to learn how to deal with. I've coached a lot of guys in terms of like guys retiring, and I go, man, listen, you just need another addiction. You need to get another addiction. And that's really what I did too, is that, I found other ways to express myself. And I don't think it was difficult for me to retire because I fought, but I wasn't really a fighter. I fought, I was good at it, but I was more of an artist. So like martial arts was my thing, and I was an artist, and I was expressing myself through combat. But when it was time to retire, I started doing more acting and personality, radio, and all that stuff. So now I'm expressing myself that way. The desire to fight is no longer there. I don't want to get beat up in the street no more. So, every once in a while, I'll still throw these hands, Yeah, I gotta throw these bows and let these little young bucks know. But the desire to compete is not there. I don't ever want to compete, but I'm still expressing myself. And I think that for fighters, it's hard because their identity is wrapped around being a fighter. They don't have anything else to do. And I was just telling this guy the other day, it's really hard for fighters too, because during your prime years, you're dedicating that to a trade that has no real serviceable skills afterwards. So like these guys are training and they're in and out of the gym and they're in their 20s all the way through now they're 30 years old. Now, they can't fight anymore, and they haven't really developed a lot of skills can translate over into the real world. So it can be difficult sometimes. So, that's why I think that guidance is important for young fighters coming up. You should have somebody to guide you through.
It's so important to have like a life coach or just somebody that you trust that you can bounce those ideas off of and be comfortable with evolving. And I think that's something that you did really well, is just we're able to adapt and evolve. And you evolved in very interesting ways. I think, commentary and analyzing makes so much sense. never saw improv or comedy as being an outlet. When did that start happening?
Oh, I've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I started acting in like 2004, 2005, just as a way to help get more comfortable in front of a camera, because I always knew that, the fight game ain't about fighting. It's about being seen. It's about, it's about being seen and getting eyeballs to watch the show. So I knew it's important to be comfortable in front of a camera. So I started acting back then to get comfortable in front of a camera. Then, my career took off. I was on The Ultimate Fighter. My fight career was taking off. So I kind of put the back seat to the whole acting thing. Then it slowed down again and was kind of like off and on. But I said, I don't know if I can dedicate a lot of time to acting, because like being an actor is difficult. It's hard. It's not easy. It's harder than fighting probably. So I started doing improv, because I didn't have to memorize and I didn't have to learn lines. So I started doing improv because then I could still get what I needed out of being comfortable in front of a camera and comfortable in front of crowds. And I don't have to remember anything. All I have to do is react.
And you were probably more of yourself too.
Yeah, and you can be yourself. So
yeah,
I started doing that in like 2010. And
that's awesome.
Man, that was, that was 12 years ago. I started doing that, and I've been performing all through South Florida, and just making a fool of myself. So like all the stuff you see me doing on these shows, that's just me just, being a fool, and because I'm not afraid to be a fool.
Not afraid to be yourself. And I think that's such a big lesson that people need to know. But will you be on site this weekend for UFC Fight Night?
I will not be on site this weekend. I will be on next weekend for Covington and Masvidal.
There we go.
Following weekend, cornering Jillian Robertson. Then I'll be in London on the desk at the pre-show and the post-show. And then I'll be on the pre-show and the post-show again in Columbus, Ohio, the week after. So, like, this is my week off. Then I'm working the next 4 weekends.
Whew. Yeah, you got a busy lifestyle, but it's a good lifestyle,
Oh, listen. Every day, every time I'm in Walmart, I look at those people stocking the shelves, and I just take my hat off to them and go, man, you're a better person than I am, because I never want to have to do this. So here I go. Let me watch some fights and get good at this, because I don't want to work a real job. I don't want to work a real job.
Let me get comfortable in front of a camera so I don't have to stock shelves. It makes sense. Let's talk about Tyron Woodley for a minute. So you've had a long relationship with him. And recently he admitted that he would like to fight in boxing, MMA, and bare knuckle boxing. What are your thoughts on that statement? And where do you see him actually going this year? Do you see him doing all three?
I mean, you never say never to Tyron. That's what, that's the thing with Tyron, is that he's got such self-belief. He's been on a pretty rough patch, but in his mind, that's just part of his journey, and he still wants to keep going. So if he says he's going to box, he's going to box. If he says he's going to do bare knuckle, that's exactly what he's going to do, and no one can tell him different. He's one of the most stubborn guys I've ever met, but it works out for him in a good way.
Yeah.
It may not always seem like it's a good way, but it turns out to be a good way, So if he says he's going to do that, that's what he's going to do. Like, do I want him to do that? Probably not, because I know he has a lot of other talents. He's got a lot of other things that he can do. But and I'm not sure why he wants to fight at this point. But if he wants to fight and do it, I support it. It's his life. He's taking care of his family, takes care of a lot of people. He's got a big unit around him that he has to take care of. So whatever he wants to do to make money, I support it.
He has Masvidal defeating Covington at UFC 272. Do you agree or disagree? And why?
It's hard to say. I think it's very difficult to say, because Masvidal was so. There's two worlds in MMA. There's what the public sees, and then there's the underbelly, in which you have to be in the circles to know. And in them circles, we know the truth of how good fighters are oftentimes. And we always knew how good Masvidal was, regardless of his popularity. And Masvidal would probably always get the better of Colby in the gym, but that was years ago. I think Masvidal has what it takes to beat Colby. I think he's savvy. He's got all the tricks. He's good enough. It's just a matter of him going out and executing. And the problem with him going out and executing is that Colby's a better competitor than Masvidal. Masvidal is a better fighter, but Colby's a better competitor. So Colby will avoid a fight and turn it into a competition in which Masvidal won't be able to compete with him. So Masvidal has to just make sure he keeps it as a fight, keeps it ugly, keeps it dirty, uses his little
that's what I was going to say. It's going to have to get a little dirty in there.
Yeah, and he can't allow this to be a competition. If that happens, Colby's going to win.
Do you think that's why Colby is so dead set on all these mind games? I feel like he's just so involved with trying to get in that other guy's head. So when it comes to fight night, they're focused on everything else besides the fight, you know?
Well, Colby is a bad guy. He's a villain in a movie. It's almost like he was a nerd in a way. Yeah. And then he got a superpower. And then he was like, I can't turn back. And then
I'm gonna run with it now.
Yeah, and then he just ran with it, and now that's him. That's really what happened. You know, I mean, when he first came to American Top Team years ago, I was in the gym. I was, still in there fighting and doing my thing, and he came in, and he was relatively quiet. Like, he was a quiet guy. Like, I don't know how he was personally because he was just quiet. But when he created this character, it just became its own entity. And now he's ran with it, and it's been him for so long. It's who he is now. So
either way, it's going to be a good fight, I think. I think that's going to be a treat for the fans for UFC 272. And you're going to have the best seat in the house. So
oh my God,
awesome.
Ain't I? I'll be sitting right there.
Eating your popcorn. So before I let you go, let's end with some fan questions. And somebody asked a really great question, and I think I'm going to go with this one. You spent a lot of time at American Top Team, and as a former coach there, are you open to training Nunes at her new gym? Amanda Nunes.
I am. I've always had a good relationship with Amanda.
Yeah.
And in fact, when she left Top Team, like, even when she was with Top Team, like, I still did, like, I would do her scouting reports for her. Like, I would study her opponents for her and do a scouting report for her. So even when she was with Top Team, I vowed not to work with anybody from Top Team, but I would still work with her because she was my buddy. Yeah. And now that she left, I, wrote her a message and wished her luck, and we're still friends. We still communicate every once in a while. If she ever needed help, I'd still help her. I mean, I love her to death. I mean, she's a good human being. I love her. And, if she needs help, she knows I'm there for her.
That's great. I know. People's minds were blown when she left. Were you as surprised as everybody else was?
Not really. The reason why is because, MMA is still a very tight-knit game where, loyalty is like a big thing because, when we first started, like I said, we wasn't making no money. So it was about passion. So it was about passion and loyalty. So a lot of the traditions from American Top Team come from that same breed because, the head guys are old school guys that come from the 90s. So it's about loyalty. But at the end of the day, this is a business. And if you try to be loyal in business, you're going to cut yourself. So Amanda's like, hey, listen, I know about loyalty, but I need to do what I need to do to make me best. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
so I wasn't surprised.
Again, a great lesson for a lot of fighters to understand. And listen, this has been such a fun chat. It's been so great to get to know you and hear a little bit more about your story. What's next for you? I mean, what do you hope to accomplish in 2022 after all of these years of being in this game?
Honestly, I got a couple of movie projects. Yeah, I got a couple movie projects coming out. And I want to, just stay in the scene with the MMA game. Like I said, I love that part of the game, and I love being able to shine a light on fighters and what they do in a positive way. Like you right now, like you're giving me this platform to speak, and I want to address something real fast so that the people know that are listening to this is that the media is not bad. Right. Like the media gets kind of this bad rap, and it's hard sometimes for media members to get interviews with people. But you're giving me a platform to tell my story. You know what I'm saying? It's not me trying to, you're not directing me to like kind of get some crazy nonsense out there. You're giving me a platform to tell my story. So as a person who's in the media now on the other side, for me, I'd like to give people a platform to tell their story. And you should be able to tell your story. Don't let somebody else tell your story. Be able to tell your own story. So when you, Maddie, are, getting guys to come on your platform, just let them tell their own story. Like you're letting me tell my own story, and let them know that they get to tell their own story and not let somebody else write it for them. So as a media member, I want to be able to help people tell their own stories. And then, like I said, a couple movie projects come out, be big time, you know what I'm saying? And do my thing.
I love it. It sounds like you're gonna have a really awesome year. And listen, I'm manifesting, and I will be sitting next to you at that desk one day. I will see you there.
I believe it. You got a lot of spunk, and I like you, Maddie.
Thank you.
I think you are destined for big things.
Oh, thank you, Dean. That means a lot. But thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to following you this year.
Okay, thank you, and I look forward to following you too. You behave and you keep doing your thing.